Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with an update video today. We'll have a bit of a chat about what's been happening in Spain over the last week or so while I go for a walk around my local town here on the outskirts of Madrid with my little dog Mia, who's a little bit upset because we've come back from Portugal, and doesn't Mia absolutely love Portugal, especially the beaches, to be able to run around. And here, let's just say, there are no beaches for her to run around, only dry grass. Now I'll get the weather out of the way, and as you can see, the sun's coming up there in the east, so it's going to be a sunny day here today in Madrid. I'll pan the camera around so you can get an idea of the view that I've got. It's not the Atlantic, but it's not the worst view in the world. But unfortunately, when you go down to ground level here and you look at all of the rubbish that's lying around, absolutely disgusting the amount of rubbish that has accumulated here. But anyway, if council workers don't pick the rubbish up, then it's just going to sit on the ground. Right, now back in Madrid after 6 days in Portugal, 6 wonderful days in Portugal there on the coast at my usual spot, about 100 kilometers north of Lisbon. The weather was great, can't complain about that. Mild temperatures, mild nighttime temperatures. That's one of the big differences between this part of the Iberian Peninsula and Portugal. There's a big difference here between nighttime temperatures and daytime temperatures, but that's not the case in Portugal, where the variation is only about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, but here it's about 15. And the reason we decided to return yesterday instead of today or even tomorrow is that we wanted to avoid traffic congestion, which is common on roads like this one behind me. The highway or motorway down there is the Valencia motorway. It goes from Madrid to Valencia and vice versa. And over the next couple of days, that is going to be a very, very busy road, as will all of the major roads that lead to Madrid be over the next couple of days, with millions of people returning from their Easter getaway. And this year, 2023, a lot of people have got away for Easter. Last year was busy, but I think this year we might even break 2019 figures. Don't know, time will tell. But judging by the traffic jam leaving Madrid last Saturday, around 20-25 minutes stuck in traffic leaving the city, I reckon we're going to come close this year to breaking 2019 figures. And not only here in Spain, I think Portugal will come close to breaking records this year too, given by the amount of traffic that I saw on the roads there and the amount of rental cars I also saw on the roads. Lots and lots of people enjoying Portugal. As we know, Portugal's popularity has grown a lot in recent years, not only when it comes to tourism, but also when it comes to foreign residents living there. In fact, so hot has Portugal become, I recently read that the government has decided to cancel the Golden Visa scheme. And one of the reasons is, I believe, that that scheme has become just too popular, and it's creating problems for the rest of Portuguese society. And one of the biggest problems the Portuguese are facing, because their country has become so popular, is a housing crisis. In fact, last week, thousands and thousands of Portuguese took to the streets to demand that the government do something about this. Because basically, when well-off foreigners start arriving in your country and start buying up property, they push prices up. And let's be honest, salaries in Portugal are not very high. I think the average salary in Portugal is just over €1,000 a month, but don't quote me on that figure. And what that means is a lot of locals there can't access the property market. They can't buy, and a lot of the times they can't even afford rents. The housing crisis in Portugal is being classified as a social emergency, and as I said earlier, people are demanding that the government steps in and does something to fix the situation. But of course, as we know, these problems don't have an easy solution, and it's difficult to find the balance between attracting foreign capital and keeping locals happy. And then if you add to the mix that Portugal has also become extremely popular when it comes to tourism, you have another problem added onto the rest. Because a lot of landlords decide to take their properties off the long-term rental markets and put them on the short-term rental markets because they make more money. So we'll see if the recently elected Portuguese government, led by Antonio Costa, is able to fix this situation and improve the housing market for locals there in Portugal. And here in Spain, the situation is not much different. An interesting article in the Spanish press about this problem caught my attention yesterday, and residents in cities like Malaga in the south of Spain and Palma de Mallorca in the Balearic Islands are also starting to complain about this phenomenon and are taking action and trying to get governments to change policy. Basically what's happening in some parts of Malaga city, especially the older parts of the city, the more central parts of the city, tourist flats are taking over and residents are complaining about this. In fact, they gave the example of one block of apartments. There are 12 apartments in the building and 9 are tourist flats and only 3 permanent residents in that building. And the 3 permanent residents can't live with the situation of so many tourist flats. They complain about the noise, people constantly coming and going, and they want more stability in their building and more permanent residents. So they are asking the Malaga City Town Hall to step in and do something about this situation. And as I said before, another one of Spain's tourist hotspots, Palma de Mallorca in the Balearic Islands, has a similar problem. Too many tourist flats. But the good news is in Palma de Mallorca is that the situation is not as bad as it was a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago there was something like 25,000 tourist flats in that city, and now there's around 2,000, but apparently only 600 of those 2,000 are registered with the local government. The government there has been trying to get all of these tourist flats above board, make them legal, make the owners pay tax and all of those things, but apparently it's not easy because there are only 15 inspectors working to try to regulate the situation. It's difficult for local government to keep up with this problem because, as we know, the internet moves very, very quickly, always changing, whereas government, unfortunately, doesn't move as quickly, or at least that's my opinion. But anyway, let's see if we can find the perfect balance between tourists and locals. Not easy, but both Spain and Portugal are trying to fix the situation. Now, the final thing I want to talk about today is the Spanish language, and in particular, my pronunciation of the Spanish language. Somebody left a comment on the channel the other day questioning my pronunciation of the word beach in Spanish, the word playa, P-L-A-Y-A, suggesting that I use the English word play and add an A to the end of it to get the word playa. And this person then suggested that the correct pronunciation of that word playa is more like P-L-Y with an A on the end, playa. And I disagree with that because I don't think that is the correct pronunciation of that word. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is that my pronunciation of the Spanish language is not perfect. I didn't start learning Spanish until I was 25 years old, so I was a little bit late to the game. I think people that learn languages early in life are able to master things like pronunciation, but the later you learn a language in life, the more difficult it is to get correct pronunciation, or at least that's my opinion. And when it comes to speaking a foreign language, for example Spanish, my philosophy has always been to make yourself understood. Your pronunciation doesn't have to be 100% correct, but the most important thing, as I said, is make yourself understood. And after 25 years of living in this country, or close to 25 years of living here in Spain, I reckon I have done that. And the fact of the matter is that there's always going to be words that are more difficult to pronounce than others. And anybody who has learned English over the journey can testify to that. So whether you say playa or whether you say playa, the most important thing is that the other person understands what you are saying. Right? And just because you can't pronounce every word correctly, or perhaps you sometimes get the pronunciation wrong, that shouldn't put you off learning the language more thoroughly. As I always say, to live in this country, it's fundamental to have an intermediate level of Spanish. If you can get a higher level, fantastic. But I reckon an intermediate B1 level should be your objective. Because as another person in the comment section the other day rightly pointed out, if you don't get a decent level of Spanish living in this country, you'll always have to depend on somebody to get things done. Even if you're living in a tourist area here in Spain, for example, the south of the island of Tenerife, where a lot of people do speak English, there's always going to be a situation where you need to speak the local language. Whether it's if you have to go to the hospital and talk to a doctor, or whether you have to get some type of bureaucratic process done, you will need to have a basic level of the language. So make an effort to learn the language, and even if your pronunciation is not 100% correct, don't let that put you off learning the language further. You might make some grammatical mistakes as well. You might get a word wrong every now and again, but it shouldn't put you off. And if you are living here in Spain and you do get a decent level of Spanish, more doors will open for you. Or at least that has been my experience over the journey. But anyway, that's my rant for the day. Now I'm going to wrap this video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. What do you think about some of the things that I have said today? Do you agree that you need to learn the language to live in this country? Let me know what you think in that comment section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.